why aviation is so loved by the investors, because the aircraft as an asset is very predictable in its life, its investments, and its return. So, but I would say we are quite comfortable in that mainstream Boeing 737 or Airbus A320 family. We touch wide bodies as well as we are converting the 777-300ER. One of the reasons that you mentioned new technology, it's a painful exercise for the industry, but new technology is always, takes time to mature. Usually there is a seasonality in place, which is the core for the whole group strategy and the business model. Same as for the deliveries and redeliveries. So nobody wants to buy an aircraft in the middle of summer because most probably it will be prepared for the next season. So you'll be staying with the aircraft, let's say 6-8 years without really starting the business operations. If you will force somebody to sign for something which doesn't make sense for them, at the end you will be facing the problems of non-payments, and they are not doing great with your high lease rental. Would you be willing to step into that just because the lease rental is higher than with a more reliable operator? Most probably not. Look, the key for us was always, since the very beginning, our name in the market matters. During those years and those 150, 200 transactions we did, I think we dealt with quite a number of different parties. And I'm pretty sure that there is no single complaint about dealing with this. Somebody told that you are good to deal with, and that's the thing I like when I hear that somebody comes with the reference that, okay, these guys are trusted and you can do business with them.
Now, I want to jump straight in, but before we do, there's something that we have to talk about, because now, when this building opened, which is the summer of 2021, right?
Correct.
Obviously, there was a lot of buzz around, okay, the building is opened and you've got a CRJ 200 inside the building, right?
Yep.
Very few people know that this CRJ 200 actually belongs to you, right? You own this aircraft.
Yeah, we still own it. I'm not sure about the books. Most probably it's written off as such, but at least we were the last owner of that aircraft. Yeah, it was very successful, by the way, aircraft and business-wise. We have leased like for 8 years, and I think it never failed. And it was really, we had 8 of CRJ 200s leased to one airline, and we took them back after 8 years of operations. So still 2 brothers and sisters we are selling in Vilnius airport, and they are in the maintenance at FL Techniques. So they are kind of jumping back to life, and then that's the only one which is kind of retired.
What I'm quite curious about is that how does that feel like? Because obviously when you look at the leasing industry today, it's a transactional business, and it's a business that's not too much at the forefront of media, right?
Yeah.
But right now, so for example, and I'll say for me, where a lot of the interviews I've had have been successful because this aircraft is right behind us. What are some of the thoughts that have gone through your mind in saying, okay, we were responsible, we took a part of being something unique in aviation, having this building here? What are some of the thoughts that have gone through your mind?
I think the whole group is unique, as we most probably mentioned already many times. There are no comparable organizations to us. And, I think it's never black and white, It's a mixture of some color. But when you have everything related to aviation in one group, except of selling tickets, it kind of may sound like you're all in one device, which might give you an idea that sometimes people say like all in one devices, they do everything, but nothing right. So, printing, scanning, shopping,
very true.
Whatever. Maybe that was back in the day. So I think it's a challenge, but it's a competitive advantage. Yeah, we all know the possible synergies, and that happens on a daily basis among the group companies, but it's also a challenge, like you said, if you want not just for the sake of having everything, but really have everything and delivering the result in each and every area, which are very different from each other, that's a challenge. But then I still remember when we were talking with investors and trying to present the whole group, usually everything ended up when we say, okay, we are ACMI providers, and then you spend like 30 minutes explaining what this is ACMI.
Very true.
And then you are left with like 15 minutes of conversation.
What you really
And by
want to
the
talk
way,
about.
we have everything rest related to aviation. So
Yeah.
that's a real story. And yeah, that's, as I said, on one side it's a big advantage. You need to find a way to find the synergy. For example, I don't know, simple example from AVIAM side, we are buying some assets. Usually there is a seasonality
Yeah.
in place, which is the core for the whole group strategy and the business model. Same as for the deliveries and the deliveries. So nobody wants to buy an aircraft in the middle of summer because most probably it will be prepared for the next season. So you'll be staying with the aircraft, let's say, 6-8 years without really starting the business operations. But for us, let's say we can buy it and we can then lease it to, I don't know, some airline, our airline in Indonesia, for example, for a short term, just to save money, just not to keep the aircraft on the ground. So that's a simple example. Obviously, we can do the work at our MRO at FLT, and then, by the way, now we are having one airframe in Jakarta at FLT, and then this gives you the possibility of asking for certain extra miles if you want it faster or you want, some special attentions to certain details. Obviously, that's the competitive advantage and the synergy of the group. And like one of the major roles nowadays with AviaAM Leasing is that we need to help them out, to help our new AOCs to stand up on the feet. So we released aircraft to Skytrans to Australia, we leased to BBN Indonesia, we actually sold the frame to SmartLinks Thailand, and those are the very first units for those airlines, because when you are like a startup airline, nobody's giving you any asset on lease up until you start running and showing some results.
Yeah.
So lots of examples of the possible synergies inside of the group, which at the end most probably are giving the better result than if you are narrow to only one area. But as I said, the challenge is your chat with investors.
Yes.
So and there are no comparisons in the market, and usually the investors, they're willing or trying to benchmark you against some other organizations to compare your performance with something, and then there is nothing to compare to, because then obviously they start to split the pie into different business lines and then try to compare those ones. So
Tadas, I want to jump in here because when you look at AVIAM Leasing today, obviously global leasing business, and you are involved with so many different airlines, right? Now, obviously, very unique facts, which I want to bring in now before we really dive into it. One, you've got the aircraft, you're responsible for that, which is great. For myself personally as well, this is our third or fourth interview, I believe. So effectively, I've had more interviews with you than anybody else, which is really great, right? And I think that shows in terms of the conversation. When we go into the leasing market, the leasing industry, a lot of things happening, first of all, right? Where you've had the pre-COVID time, and it's so specific for all the industries, because you've got pre-2019, and then you have the COVID time where it was everyone was on the defense.
Yeah.
And then now we've got a post-COVID market where we're still everyone is trying to figure out, okay, we're still in this post-COVID market. What's going on, right? Whether it's OEMs, whether it's airlines, whether it's lessors, how do you see the market that we're in right now?
Michael, it's crazy years, starting from right before the COVID, when the industry was on the very peak, then suddenly on the very bottom, and now quite quickly above that peak before,
Yes.
So I imagine it's like, I don't know how to say, like a bus hitting a big hole in the road, and then everyone inside of it is shattered. So not most probably, but that happened to the industry as well, because this disruption during the COVID, and especially on the brand new aircraft production, it never recovered. And that created the environment which is obviously lacking the aircraft. And that turns into the extremely high prices on any asset that can fly.
Mhm.
Okay, we focus on aircraft. I'm not talking about carpets or other things flying.
True, yeah.
But in these days, if you figure out or find out the flying carpet, most probably somebody would lease it as well, you know. So, and then that's shaping all other stuff. Like AviaAM Leasing, we are involved in the conversion from passenger into cargo. And a part of the 737-800s, we are also in 777-300ER project, which is very unique. And our aircraft is a prototype for the STC, which is great and important. But then, you know, you need to buy aircraft to convert into cargo. And usually you buy them when they are cheap. And they are not cheap.
Very true. They aren't.
And they will not become cheap anytime soon, you know. So you're
Yeah.
trapped a bit in from the different perspectives. But yeah, market is really shaken.
Mhm.
Obviously, these kind of markets also creates the opportunities, because even if you buy something expensive, but the prices are still rising, you can still sell with the profit.
Yeah.
And then on the leasing side, it's a bit different, because then it's the biggest question in my eyes is for how long you need to sign up the lease at the top prices ever. So most probably you are not willing to fix that for 6 or 8 or 10 years.
Mhm.
And then all the lessees, they're trying to, okay, let's sign up for 2 years or for 3 years or whatever. But frankly speaking, Michael, in my eyes, nothing much will change in 2 years from now, just because the production is really lagging behind. And you know, once again, there might be disruptions like COVID was. Hopefully that will never repeat. And if it grows like it's growing now, so then once again, all the aircraft will continue to fly just because
You know, the market needs them.
the market is demanding for that. Then less aircraft being parted out, constraints on the part supply. Um, I wish the OEMs to get back on track with their production capacities, because that's really important, because now this unnatural gap of missing units of aircraft is really big and really impacting the market. So, you know, but then, you know, for AVM, one of the strategies was that, okay, now it's really hard to find the full aircraft to purchase. Now we're doing in parts, like we buy airframe there, we buy the engine there.
Yes, exactly.
Engine
One
then
engine from one airline, another engine,
yeah,
put it all
from
together.
any different seller, whatever, put everything together.
Yeah.
That also impacts a bit, because these type of projects, they're longer in time. It's not like you just bought a full aircraft, did some maintenance, and then, you know, off you go. While you're collecting all these parts, bringing them together, you know, there are much more work to be done. So AVM's projects became longer. Obviously, we're buying at the higher price, but still finding the opportunities to sell at even higher price. So yeah, that's the momentum. In my eyes, it should be like this, continuing for another 1, 2, 3 years, most probably. And then so you just need to figure out the way how to survive.
No, but it's you know, and Tadas, this is very interesting because you have a lot of people will say that right now we're in a lessors market,
Yeah.
right? Where
And I agree to that.
the lessors have, I don't want to say leverage, but you have an advantage in the sense that, okay,
And sorry
yes.
for interrupting. And they have a revenge feeling over airlines since
feeling.
COVID, when they
Yes.
were in the bad situation.
Yes, exactly. But it's a good market for you right now, right? Now, yes, it's a bit different. It's different dynamics. Obviously, yes, you are, you know, you're playing maybe a, you know, a jigsaw in terms of, okay, you're putting the airframes together with the airlines, with the engines, right? And you're navigating that. But it's a good market for you right now, is it not?
Look, it's good from both sides. I mean, from both leasing and trading. And I should admit that we are doing more and more trading activities than the leasing activities. And our leases, they became more oriented for the group airlines to support them. So, you know, let's say that's one of the things how you diversify your activities. So, but I would say that our trading part is growing, leasing is shrinking. For different reasons. We were never built as an organization to become a number 2, number 3 lessor in the world, you know. We're always like small, lean boutique organization.
Which is a perfect market to be in.
Yeah, exactly. To find very, very specific opportunities and,
Yeah.
and do specific stuff, because frankly, going in that broad, very open and very competitive market, you need to find your advantages, and that would be, how to say, well, hard to achieve. When you delve into the niche things, obviously you face more, let's say, non-standard projects. It takes more time, but then, at the end, the client is paying the price for that. So I think we keep on doing that for the nearest future, and obviously, even, let's say, for our activities, we are at the moment we're debt free, like zero debt on AviaAM Leasing. So we are building the things and doing the things with our own cash, and then turning it around, which gives you a flexibility, and then you don't need time to raise the funds, the financing. On the other hand, that limits your growth capabilities. I'm not saying that we are not aiming for that in the future, but at the time we are trying to remain lean and flexible organization.
But how so? Because if now obviously a lot of companies, they do operate with a certain level of debt, right? And debt is necessary to push a business forward and to grow. But to jump off what you've just said, how does it limit you, or is it, how do you navigate that? Because obviously businesses need a certain level of debt to operate, right?
Michael, yes and no. I mean, let's presume if we would raise 1 billion, does it mean that we will do 5 times more business? I doubt. It's hard to find, let's say, niche and specific projects in a big quantities. So you or you will start doing less profitable things, which is, once again, the question remains, what's your target? Is your target to grow the revenue, or you should be more focused on bigger profits? So, I mean, it would allow us to do maybe more expensive projects on the more expensive aircraft, but I would say we are quite comfortable feeling ourselves in that mainstream Boeing 737 or Airbus A320 family business, and then delving or striving for the wide body would be something which is not really our core competence, I would say. Obviously, we touch wide bodies as well, as we are converting the 777-300ER, but I would say for our activities, it's more common to delve into the mainstream, find very specific products, and obviously look and find for something which is helpful for our startup airlines in the very beginning, because that's the only source for them for the aircraft.
Now, I think the industry in general, right? There's a lot more leasing activity for the narrow bodies, right? There's a lot more acquisitions and fleet upgrades for the narrow bodies as well. Now, long haul, obviously the wide body is still a very important sector of our industry. But why this focus on the narrow bodies? Why is that? Especially from your perspective, because as a lessor, right? Now, I've sat here, I've heard the opinions coming from the MRO organizations, coming from the airlines as well. But as a lessor, why this focus on the narrow bodies?
Less risk.
Okay.
Simple as that. I mean, look, there is a niche for the wide bodies as well, obviously, and let's say the 777-300ER is the most demanded, most probably aircraft currently in the world, even it's much less in numbers comparison to the number of the narrow bodies aircraft. But everything is good when it's good, but if something happens, and then you are with narrow body and with wide body, so obviously your problem would be much wider as a body.
Fair enough.
So,
yes.
But I know many people doing great business with the wide body leasing, and that's fine. I mean, but you need to have certain kind of specialty and special understanding of the market. Narrow bodies they're cheaper to maintain. They are cheaper in essence as such. They are quantity-wise much more in bigger numbers. So your placing opportunities or finding the opportunities for the aircraft, they are much bigger, and that's the simple and honest answer. And I know there are fans of wide body business and fans of narrow body business, but I guess everyone finds its place, in the market.
In some cases, obviously, because you've got the narrow body business, which is, I guess, when a lot of people take a look at narrow body units, it's also a shorter time frame, or shorter, shall I say, TAT, turnaround time, in terms of, okay, this is the lease rate we're looking at this, at this certain narrow body unit. And obviously for longer, for wide body units, it's a little bit longer. But I want to come specifically something that we mentioned a little bit before and we dove into it, but it's the turnaround times, but especially the lease rates, right? We're in a lessor's market right now, and lessors are essentially happy. Well, I'm not going to say happy, but it's a favorable market for how rates are right now. How are you navigating that now? That question on the back of knowing that you've got the main OEMs, Airbus and Boeing, and there's a backlog of 4,000, 5,000 aircraft that still need to be delivered into the market, right? How are you navigating today and preparing yourself as well for tomorrow? Because that's quite important.
I mentioned already that, how to say, that current lease rentals, they look at the very top ever, most probably. And then there's a fight of two forces, somebody wants to have the lease longer for the longer investments, for the longer predictability of the investments, and obviously the lessees are fighting back because they don't want to fix that super high price for a longer time, So it's always finding the compromise somewhere. So I would say in our case, we started to have a shorter leases to gain the benefit of the current lease rentals, but then it's you cannot force each and every airline to pay that for a very long period of time. So but like in each and every business, most probably where there is a supplier and the user, which is lessor and lessee, it's just, how to say, finding the compromise. Obviously now lessors are obviously in the power position because simply of the lack of the assets. So this brings all the things up. What does it mean at the end? Most probably airlines could pay those higher lease rentals, and then what? Then passenger will be paying more for the tickets. Simple as that. I mean,
it has an add-on effect, which is true.
But look, I mean, I think the situation currently in the market is abnormal, and it shouldn't be lasting like for a very, very long period of time. On the other hand, do you see signs that everything is coming back to the normal track? Still not too much, frankly speaking.
But Tadas, and I want to touch on that because now everyone says that it's a market that's not going to last for too long, right? Which is fair. We're a business that's constantly changing, a business that's influenced by seasonality. But at the same time, you have OEMs saying, okay, look, we're going to come back to normal rates of production in 2030, in 2032, right? Which is about 3, 4, 5 years out in the future. And we know that our industry, deliveries play a significant role in terms of airline operations. Implementing or integrating new aircraft technology, that also plays quite a significant role. So yes, everyone is saying it's not going to last for too long, but it seems like it's lasting.
It will stay here for some of it, and one of the reasons when you mentioned new technology, it's a painful exercise for the industry, but new technology is always, takes time to mature. And we see what happens with new technology engines. They're not so, how to say, long-lasting so far on the wing, and that also puts additional disruption to the airlines' operations. So yeah, I agree with you, Michael, that there are many signs that this environment will stay around. But yeah, we are all, wishfully thinking that even not being selfish like a lessor, that I would vote for a normal market rather than to something which is bringing certain, how to say, gray unknown areas and less predictability. Because why aviation is so loved by the investors? Because the aircraft as an asset is very predictable in its life, its investments, and its return. So one of the values for the investors is really predictability.